Thank you all very much for joining us today. My name is Andrew Romanoff. I was the Speaker of the House. I'm running for the U.S. Senate, and we're going to pause for a few seconds here as the folks join us online on Twitter. This conference is available like every town hall we're holding every Friday at noon, every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Mountain Time, on Facebook at Romanoff 2020, on Twitter, and on Zoom. And if you want to sign up to get invitations to these regular town hall meetings, you can do that by going to our website at andrewromanoff.com. We're joined today by a distinguished panel on the question we put to them: how can we help small businesses and their employees weather this pandemic? We're joined by a small business owner from Boulder, Donna Werner, who is co-owner of BW Construction. I want to say thank you for joining us today.
I appreciate it.
We're joined as well by Karen Gerwitz, who is the president and CEO of the World Trade Center Denver. Karen, thank you for making time.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And I'm going to start by introducing my friend and our state senator, Angela Williams, who chairs the Senate Business, Labor, and Technology Committee, is the vice chair of the Local Government Committee in the Colorado Senate. Angela, Senator Williams, Your Excellency, I want to say thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew. It's a pleasure to be here and join you today.
I'm reminded when Al Gore was on David Letterman years ago, he wasn't sure how to address the vice president. So Letterman asked him, should I say your excellency, your honor, Mr. Vice President? And Al Gore said, your adequacy. So that's how I tell people to address me. I want to say thanks to everybody who is joining us. If you all have questions, I'm going to suggest you post those either on Facebook or on Zoom. And I know we've already got a question coming in here. If you are using Zoom, I'm going to ask you to post the questions in the Q&A box, not the chat box, but the Q&A box. We'll use the chat box on Zoom to post information, including the news that I'm asking Seth, who is organizing our team today, to post on the question I want to start with for Senator Williams. So I know you've been working, Senator Williams, on help for folks who are self-employed, folks who are in the gig economy, folks who might not be otherwise eligible until today for the sorts of assistance that other employees get through unemployment insurance. But now I'm told that the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment, thanks in part to your efforts, as I understand it, is going to begin on Monday taking unemployment claims from the self-employed. Can you talk a little bit about that breaking news?
Yes, I'd be happy to. And I believe this is a development that is very important, as we don't leave anyone out when we look at small businesses. And I've been a former small business owner and a contractor myself. So as we were talking with the congressional delegation about, what are we doing for the self-employed, the gig workers, and independent contractors that might be just a one-person consulting firm? What are we going to do to make sure that we can keep those businesses alive and they can have income to support themselves? And in working with the congressional delegation, they were able to get that in the last package. And so the good news is that the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment will start accepting applications for unemployment for these independent contractors. And so I'm just very excited about that. This is a group that's often not thought of when we think of brick and mortar businesses, but they're going to start taking applications on Monday at the www.colorado.gov/CDLE/unemployment. We've all been reading about the amounts of record unemployment claims that we've seen across the country and in Colorado. And CDLE is working hard on their systems, but I ask you to be patient and have perseverance in making sure that independent contractors and self-employed who need their unemployment get their cases in. And I can say that CDLE is working very hard to ensure that the process is working for everyone and we get those checks out to those who need them most as soon as possible.
I appreciate that. And I know we're getting now a dozen other questions that are coming in from some of the 1,200 people who have signed up to join this virtual town hall. No pressure on all of you right now. But speaking of employers, Donna, in Boulder, you run a small business. You've
I
got,
do.
I think, half a dozen employees.
I do.
Tell us a little bit about your business and your experience during the pandemic, if you don't mind, please.
Sure. I think what's a little bit unique to us is that we're in between essential and not essential employees. And I think that brings just a new look at it. Is we have to look into ourselves and our employees and decide what's safe for us and what's safe for our clients. We run a small remodeling company, been here 31 years, and we're in people's homes when they're home, typically. So even though construction, and I'm using quotes, right, is one of the essentials, there's some mixed messages from county, city, and state about essential construction is what? Safety, transportation. Is it really remodeling someone's kitchen? So that's one of the unique facets, I think, of our company is trying to decide what's safest for our employees, what's safest for our homeowners, and with the understanding that there's going to be economic implications big time for everyone, regardless what we do. So I thought I'd just point that out as something unique to our business. We made a conscious decision to leave our job sites for safety reasons at this point, furloughed everyone, and don't know when, the unemployment's really going to come through, as the senator's talking about. It's hard to know when you're really going to get a check. By the time we see a check, we might be over the hump and be able to be in people's homes. Is that
It
helpful?
reminds me, yeah, it's quite helpful. And it reminds me, as one of our, Amanda's asking also about the Paycheck Protection Program, which is running out or has run out of money.
Yes.
And Karen, I know you've been having some conversations, Karen, with folks about this issue too. What's your impression of the standing of that fund and what we could do to replenish it?
I understand. I'm Karen Gerwitz at the World Trade Center, and we are working with companies, getting our member companies calling us and asking if they know other resources to apply for additional funds. I hear of a few out there. We've got some resources on our website, which I believe will be put up in the chat box. So I did talk to one manufacturer that was actually banking with Wells Fargo, and they had a cap on the amount of loans that they could provide. And I believe that was lifted, and then now the money has run out. And so I understand there were third-party providers through the SBA offering some access to the PPP loans, but they're on a wait list, they told me, as of yesterday. So I believe that we're going to have to pass additional funding for those loans, and I hope we will, so that those funds can be opened up for our small businesses. It's definitely a point of concern for especially those companies that are not able to work at full capacity. Manufacturers are impacted by this, only be able to run short shifts or half their workers, et cetera, and yet try to keep their employees on payroll. So we are concerned for those small businesses. We're a small business. We have 7 staff. We applied for one. Thankfully, we were approved. But it's definitely needed at this time to try to open up more capital there for our small businesses.
A couple folks who are in the category of small business are jumping into the Q&A box. And again, if you all have questions, the 1,200 now, 1,300 folks who are joining us in this call, I hope that you will sign on through Zoom or Facebook or Twitter to show your questions. What resources, Bill is asking, are available for freelancers to re-enter the economy? That's one question. And Susan's also saying she's a retired, in quotes, retired high school counselor and teacher. Her business has cut drastically from 10 to 12 students a week to only 1 every other week. What can she do? Would she be eligible? I think she's also asking about the CDOE announcement that Senator Williams was sharing with us earlier. So a counselor with a student once every other week, a freelancer, are they eligible for the kind of relief that we're discussing here?
You know, I don't know that we point out exactly a freelancer, but I would encourage her to go to the website for the independent contractors and self-employed. I mean, she would be considered self-employed. So I would get into the hopper and I would apply for the unemployment benefits. We're trying to help as many Coloradans as we can. So I'd encourage her to do that. I would also like to point out that the Denver Business Journal has compiled some additional resources for small businesses, and they're actually allowing small businesses free access to their website. So I would encourage people to go out to the Denver Business Journal. There's a resource link you can click on, and it's free to their website that has a lot of other additional resources that can help businesses during this time of need.
I'm going to ask, and Alana's asking me to identify the participants before they speak, so that's on me. Karen, I'm going to punt a question to you, and I'll try to do justice to it as well. Benjamin's asking about our thoughts on healthcare, seeing that millions of people are losing their employer coverage after being laid off. I've been taking on this issue in the course of our campaign and even during this week because Benjamin's right. I mean, the estimates, some I've seen suggest that as many as 47 million Americans could lose their jobs, and since the lion's share have insurance tethered to those jobs, their health coverage would go with it. My take, just speaking for myself, obviously not for this panel, is that we should decouple health insurance from employment. I think this is a lesson we've learned the hard way, that your ability to get a job that provides benefits, your employer's ability to provide that coverage, your decision to change jobs, or through no decision of your own perhaps to lose a job, as so many Americans are finding, should not cost you your health coverage. It's one of the reasons I support a universal single payer plan. But Donna, maybe you could start by speaking a little bit to your employees' experience, because I know that you're trying to help the half a dozen people you employ get coverage. And you'll need to unmute yourself there.
Donna Werner, BW Construction. We support people's health insurance in a different way because I didn't want it tied to our company, because they're all in very unique individual situations as a small company. Some get their insurance via their spouses. Some prefer to go to Kaiser on their own. So we've just given people a stipend towards health insurance all these years. So I guess in a sense, they're losing that stipend, right, as they lose their employment. So it's almost a similar situation as you reflected, Andrew, about insurance in some ways being tied to the employer.
Karen, Angela, do you all want to weigh in on that?
Yeah,
This is Senator Angela Williams. I think one of the other things that we could do is, extend the window on the individual healthcare markets for those individual workers to be able to go out and obtain health insurance, because health insurance is just as important as their paycheck. If their health isn't up to par, they cannot go to work. And so I suggest that we look at extending that window on the individual market so workers can access health care.
This is Karen Gerwitz of the World Trade Center. I agree too. This is my personal opinion that we should uncouple the insurance with corporations. A small business like ours with just seven on our team, it's difficult to get good rates anyway. Most employees have found better opportunities on their own accord. So it's been hard for us to get any sort of small group rate that would be beneficial to individuals. And so in our experience, one or two have been on our plan because they've found better rates elsewhere. And so if we can provide a better alternative for individuals to have their healthcare stick with them, no matter what their job situation is in. So I think it'd be a better alternative for all of us. That's my personal opinion. It's obviously not a topic that the World Trade Center covers. We're all about trade, supply chain, tariffs, a lot of other subjects that are hitting small businesses as well.
I just wondered, can I comment on the senators about the extension for ACA? I worry right now with people out of work in terms of having the money to even pay for their own health for some people.
This is Senator Williams. I can agree with you there. And, finances are tight during this time. Hopefully, with the unemployment benefits, that would help with some of the finances here. And thank you for what you do for your workers and your construction industry, because I've had the construction industry contact me about some ways that we can help boost the economic outlook for construction businesses. And I would love to speak to you about that effort that we're working on offline.
That'd be great. Happy to.
I will just use this opportunity, since we've been talking a little bit about healthcare, to tease another town hall meeting we're holding, I think, next week. If you go to andrewromanoff.com and sign up for the newsletter, you'll get invited to a discussion we're having next Friday, the 24th, with Wendell Potter, who's one of the nation's leading voices in support of Medicare for All, the universal single payer plan that I happen to support, speaking on my behalf. And I know it's a crisis that predated this pandemic. The fact is, even before coronavirus hit, we were already seeing 500,000 families in America driven into bankruptcy because of the cost of healthcare, the single biggest source of bankruptcy in the United States, and 72 million Americans uninsured or underinsured, and 35,000 folks dying in the richest nation on the face of the earth because they couldn't afford to see a doctor. Unacceptable. Other countries don't operate that way. We don't have to either. We're getting a series of specific questions for folks, and I think we posted this, but I'll make sure that Seth has got it up there. Someone's asking that, Wendy's asking that we repeat or post the Colorado website Senator Williams was mentioning to register for unemployment for independent contractors. Seth, who's playing the voice of God in this panel, can you confirm that that's on the website? Or you can post, yeah, there it is. He's posting it again in the chat feature. Thanks.
Okay, great.
I appreciate that. And for those folks who aren't able to see the chat feature, it is, tell me if I got this right, or maybe Senator Williams, you could just remind us of that address for folks who might be listening in.
Hi, this is Senator Angela Williams. For those who want to go apply starting on Monday for the unemployment insurance benefits for self-employed and independent contractors, it's www.colorado.gov/CDLE/unemployment.
Thank you. CDLE, like Colorado Department of Labor and Employment, CDLE.
Correct.
Appreciate that. So a couple folks are asking, and again, I'll put this to any panelist who wants to identify themselves here. They're asking about their own eligibility. What if, for example, one of my consultant gigs keeps paying me and the other has been reduced and unpredictable? Can I file? That person's asking.
If you have had a decrease in your income, I would encourage you to go online and apply, because if even those who are still working are eligible for the stimulus checks that are coming out right now. But if your income has been reduced as a result of the COVID-19, I would highly encourage you to go to the website and go ahead and apply for some additional funding through the unemployment benefits. This is Senator Angela Williams.
Donna Werner, there's a question for you. Susan's asking, we have an insurance claim roofing project and we have two contractors bidding. One says they can't work, the other says they can. Yeah. We're trying to figure out the real answer. And I know you spoke, or maybe when we were getting ready for this panel, about the definition of essential.
So that's a great question, and our homeowners are asking us the same question. The state has one definition depending on the county you're in. We're in Boulder County. They make it a little clearer. The city of Boulder does not make it clear. So there's a little personal choice there. What I would say is exterior work, like roofing, could be pretty safe from a COVID standpoint. You're not in someone's home. You probably can keep workers at least 6 feet apart. And there's a limited number of workers typically. But I would say as a small business owner, you need to go to your city and county building department regulations and take a look to make sure that it fits with your model. Is that helpful?
It is, yeah, I appreciate that. I'm getting a series of other questions along the same lines, and I'm just going to fire these at you, and whoever wants to jump in can tell us. Childcare providers, small business daycare providers, would they be covered? An anonymous attendee is asking.
Hi, this is Senator Angela Williams. If you can define your small business as a business that is registered with the state of Colorado and you've had impacts, I would, child cares provide services to the people of Colorado, and especially those essential workers who are still working. Again, I want to encourage you to go to the unemployment benefits website and apply for some of those benefits. If you're a small business that is dependent on keeping the doors open and paying your lease or your rent, we know that the PPE money has ran out, the $349 billion in less than 2 weeks. And I want to encourage all of you who are on this call, please contact your congressperson, your U.S. senator, or your representative. I have weekly calls with them, and so I take these concerns to them and make sure that our congressional team, the Colorado's delegation, can have the most influence and represent us, because that's what they're elected to do. And pick up the phone and have a conversation with them. I have found them to be accessible, and they are open to any ideas that they can address if we have gaps in where the federal government can be supporting small businesses and individuals. I highly, highly encourage that, Andrew.
I appreciate that reminder. I was telling some folks the other day that most of the legislation I introduced when I was in the State House came from conversations like these. People would tell me about a problem they were experiencing in the real world. Sometimes it was possible to change a state law to fix that problem. Sometimes we just needed to enforce an existing law or take the action to the local or federal level. Speaking of the state legislature, you and I were talking a little bit beforehand, Senator Williams, about the General Assembly, which is not in session right now, but has to come back at least to pass a budget in the School Finance Act. And the tentative date for reconvening is May 18th?
May 18th. Mm-hmm. This is Senator Angela Williams, and you know, the Colorado legislature is affected by the COVID-19 just like everyone else in our state. And we chose to recess on March the 14th due to not internally the spreading of the virus, but we want to be able to act responsibly, just as we're asking the rest of Coloradans to do. So currently, what we have done is we're shooting for May the 18th to return to session. Now, what session will look like is still very much undetermined. We don't know where we're going to be in regards to the COVID-19 crisis. We don't know where the stay-at-home orders are going to be. We're trying to figure out, if we go back, what does that look like? How long will it be? But there are two things we have to do by Constitution, as Andrew said. We've got to balance the budget. We got to deliver a balanced budget to the governor, and we have to do the School Finance Act. If it is safe and we determine that we can go back for an undetermined amount of time, in the sense of we have 53 days left. And I don't know if anyone is aware of this, but we had to have the Supreme Court of Colorado interpret the Constitution when it says we have to serve 120 days. Does that mean consecutively, or we just have to serve 120 days? And so the Supreme Court said it's just 120 days, and that doesn't have to be consecutive. And so we have 53 days left, but based upon what the COVID virus is and our stay at home and where we are, can determine how long, if we go back, how long we will be back. But we're having conversations, and I suspect that what's going to come to the forefront is that what our priority is to helping Coloradans, individuals, and small businesses through this COVID crisis, and how do we keep them viable. There will, of course, be monies that have been appropriated by the federal government to the state of Colorado, and we'll have to look at, you know, how and where are the needs and how we can appropriate those monies to help Coloradans. So the budget, the School Finance Act, and addressing the COVID crisis to help Coloradans get back on their feet would be our priority.
Thank you. Okay, I got about 35 other questions here coming in. Zoom moderator, by the way, not the job I originally applied for, but we're all trying to make do. And I was telling the group at our last virtual town hall that when you're ranking workers in America, I think political candidates are safely ensconced at the bottom of the list, not essential at this time. So we're trying to use our campaign to provide resources and connect people to opportunities like Jane, who is a sole proprietor and a consultant and wondering if there are any grants that she can apply for. Anybody have a thought on that?
Well,
And if
there
we-
are some, the city economic development offices are offering some small access to grants or loans. So you might check your city economic development office. I don't know if you're based in Denver or not, but I believe some of the economic development sites have specific grants or loans you can apply for. And the State Office of Economic Development has additional resources on their website. The governor's been talking about some loans. I saw one question come through about immigrants and immigrant-owned businesses. So some of those loans are tailored for our smallest, most vulnerable populations. And so I think there's opportunities there for you. I don't have specifics on those loans, but I heard the governor talking about those. So perhaps on the Office of Economic Development, they'd have access to that.
This is
Nancy's,
Senator Angela Williams. And Karen, if I can tag on to that, I don't have the resources in front of me, but I think that those small business owners out there who are seeking other additional, grants, resources, and loans, they probably want to look at micro lenders also.
Worse.
I would think OEdit may have a list of those micro lenders out there because they have access to funds for small businesses also.
Yeah, I can tell you that we work with a few in particular, CEDS, CEDS, and Spring Fling used to be called Accion, the Colorado Enterprise Fund. Those are three that you might want to look at for micro lending. We actually at the World Trade Center run a program helping immigrant-owned small businesses start their first trading businesses from the United States. So we're helping immigrants and refugees run their own businesses that are cross-border in transactions. So either importing or exporting from their home markets or home countries and into the US or exporting to their home country. So it's a really rewarding program, and we're working with all of the small micro-lending organizations to help our constituents.
if you're able to share the names that you just listed of the organizations that people might turn to, we'll try to post them on our chat box. And by the way, for those folks who are following this conversation, we're going to post a recording of the town hall so you'll be able to catch up on the parts that you might have missed. Will small business owners who did not pay themselves a salary in the past, Nancy is asking, be allowed to collect unemployment beginning Monday, or file for it at least under CDLE?
This is Senator Angela Williams. If you are unemployed, go apply for unemployment insurance. I can't say that enough. We are not working to exclude anyone. We want to take care of everyone. And if you are a business owner and you're not getting paid, I encourage you to go apply.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Kate's pointing out that even when the small businesses are able to reopen, they're not going to be suddenly okay. And I know you must be thinking about this, Donna, with respect to your business, because you've had to furlough folks now.
Well,
so-
and I have two ideas. One, people have been, this is my joke, sitting at home in the same house for 2 months, staring at their kitchen that they're desperately tired of and want to remodel. So we'll have either a huge amount of calls, or people will be, really challenged financially, and they won't be able to call to the extent of not only our business, but all kinds of small businesses will suffer.
So you're offering a post-pandemic remodeling special?
Sure.
Advertising now? Got
Sure.
it.
Well,
If I could add to that too, a lot of companies when they're in a recession like this, tend to pull back on some of their global efforts for sales, and maybe try to focus only locally and try to reboost their domestic sales. And I can just put a little word of caution about that. I know it's more difficult in this world right now to keep those long-term strategic focuses alive, especially globally, because it's more challenging and there's more inherent risks right now with supply chains and other issues, trade policy concerns that we see, increased tariffs, et cetera. So what I would say though is that this is not a time to look only short term. The companies that are looking long term and investing in their international markets and keeping sales alive there and trying to really focus their strategies in a global way are going to sustain this recession more than those that pull back and only look with a nationalist viewpoint. So our office at the World Trade Center is helping companies maintain their global markets, maybe even expand into new global markets at this point, because opportunity will come from this. Recession is always followed by opportunity. And what you don't want to do is to pull out all of your sales globally and then find yourself having to scramble to try to get back into those markets, because that will be very difficult to build that market share again. That long-term strategy is what global business requires. And so we're helping companies navigate this kind of constantly changing world. And if there's any support you need, from rerouting your supply chains to filing for tariff relief, there are several products that you can get duty drawback and other tariff relief. If you need data support, trade data support, or documentation support, our office is still open and supporting companies with those export documents. So we want to help business continuity. I think if all of us can focus on the continuity of our smallest businesses and helping them thrive through this program, then we'll all weather this a little bit sooner. It's going to take a constant effort to try to keep sales alive, especially on the global market, but we're here to help. So
I appreciate that. Looks like a call is knocking me off of the screen here, so I'm gonna try to decline that and get back on. It looks like our crack team has also posted the resources that Karen, you just offered. So I want to say thanks to the faceless folks on this call who are in the back office at home, like all of our team, working to make this virtual town hall happen. Some variations of questions I think we've addressed here, but I'll just repeat them for the benefit of the folks who are posting them. I own a massage therapy practice, which, by the way, in addition to remodeling, Donna, I think we'll probably also be doing gangbuster business when this is over. It's just myself. I wasn't able to get a small business loan. Do you think massage therapists will be able to work at all after this? Elena's asking.
Hi, this is Senator Angela Williams. As we all know, we have the governor has issued and the city and county of Denver has issued what is essential and non-essential businesses. And I believe as we look forward to some type of normalcy, we'll see some type of phase in of what's essential, what's non-essential. And I would highly encourage everyone on the call to watch the governor's press briefings each day. He's doing a thorough job. He's starting to think about what that might look like. So I think it'll come down to, kind of phasing and ramping back up as to essential and non-essential businesses. But you provide, services before we went into this COVID-19 phase. And when we get back to full normalcy, I really have no doubt that we all are working hard, and the people on this call and in the legislature, our governor and our congressional team is working hard to try to get back to some normalcy when the governor deems appropriate. So I encourage you to stay positive.
I appreciate that reminder. And I will tell you, the comments that the governor has received in return have been, in some cases, anything but positive. I saw some of your colleagues in the legislature, Senator Williams, not you, describe the police state they believed Governor Polis was establishing and actually compare it to the Gestapo or the Soviet Union. Really outlandish. And the governor, I thought, did a really magnificent job of patiently explaining the difference between the public health orders that he's being forced to issue to keep us all safe and the tactics employed during Nazi Germany's era. It's staggering to me that he's actually forced to explain the difference to folks in the legislature who are attacking him using that kind of demagoguery. I wrote a little bit about that yesterday. I want to just continue these questions that are coming in. Another massage therapist. I think our email list is full of massage therapists because they recognize I'll be a good customer when the pandemic allows me to sign up again. I'm a self-employed sole proprietor massage therapist in Boulder for 34 years. One of our callers, looks like Paul, is asking when or will the state of Colorado be able to provide unemployment compensation applications for self-employed sole proprietors?
Monday.
But that's the answer starts Monday, right?
That's Monday, yes.
Not
Angela
actually.
Williams. The application process will open up again. It'll open up on Monday, the 20th, for self-employed and independent contractors. And I think the admin put that on the chain in the chat, so you can access that website.
I know this. Yeah, please go ahead.
I was just going to put my citizen hat on, so this has nothing to do with the business, but your summary of what happened with Representative Neville, who I believe made that statement. I think it's really important as we look at the national news and the local news. November is our chance to vote. And like I said, this is my citizen hat, and we should be looking carefully at how our governments are handling this crisis, and think about that when we vote in November.
Thanks for making that gentle point. I've made some points less gently on my website, and you can sign up for the newsletters and get invitations to these virtual town halls if you go to andrewromanoff.com, or if you go to Facebook or Twitter at Romanoff 2020. Many of you are already there because you are flooding the Q&A box on Zoom, at least, with these questions. And one of those questions comes from the owner of a small business who says their products are sold wholesale to some stores that are no longer looking for product because they're closed. We also sell, this person asks, through farmers markets, which are no longer open, so at least not in a form that we can sell to. I expect my contractor can apply for unemployment. How about me?
That is a question that I cannot answer right now. I'd ask you to please email me at sen.williams.sd33@gmail.com, and I can follow up with that. I know that, farmers markets are seasonal types of businesses, and I live here at Stapleton, and I know we haven't opened up the farmers markets because it's seasonal, but let's get an answer to that question for you. And Andrew, if the moderator/admin would put my email address up, I'd be happy to follow up on any questions that we haven't addressed specifically that I may be able to help with.
Thanks for making that offer. If you are sharing your email with the world, then Alana's asking, and I think Seth or Carolina will be on the case shortly. Your email will be broadcast across this chat line for all to see. Please flood Senator Williams' inbox. I remember when I was in the legislature, before the advent of this kind of technology, we would get questions from folks as the committee hearings were being downloaded and carried in audio feeds. And somebody asked me once, they said, well, Representative Romanoff, you're an idiot. That's how they started the conversation. So I know your constituents will be more polite, but it is a reminder that if you're in public office and you now have the ability, even out of session, you can have this communication. I think as Senator Williams was reminding us with your representatives, with your senators at the state and federal and local level. And for me, at least when I was in the state House, and I think I'm speaking for Senator Williams too, our ability to tap the collective brain power of the almost 6 million people who live in Colorado makes us better lawmakers. At least that's my strong commitment in my
This
experience.
is Senator Angela Williams. Andrew, what also might be helpful is your admin to put on the chat the names and phone numbers and or email addresses of all of our congressional delegation, because I can tell you I've been on phone calls and they're asking for our input, and I believe it's making a difference in what we're seeing come out of Washington.
We'll
And
post a
so
link. Our
I
team
think we
just
can
heard you. Sorry.
do that.
Yeah, our team just heard you, and they're on it. They've already got yours up there, and they'll put everybody else's up there. We'll
Okay.
highlight Senator Gardner's email address too, in particular, for folks to communicate with him. Yeah.
If
I didn't
could
say go
add-
that far. No, I'm joking.
If I could add on that, if you are contacting your congressional delegates or senators, U.S. Senate, then please also take a look at the U.S. Trade Representative website. They're taking comments, and you should also tell your congressional delegation that we should be lifting tariffs of all products from China during this time, because it's expected to bring about $75 billion into our economy. And we could use that right now. And so even if it's a temporary lift of the 301 tariffs, the 232 tariffs that are in the code, those are put on by the president, and we can try to advocate that those be lifted, not only for medical devices and PPE equipment, but for other critical components that need to be purchased maybe they're only made in China. And so having to open up a flow of free trade for our manufacturers right now that are looking to make products, and they have to source some of their components from China. So I know that they've lifted some tariffs in this time of crisis, but I think that we could advocate to lift more, even if it's a temporary lift. It's like I said, it's to bring $75 billion back into our economy that we could really use. So
I appreciate that. Thank you for making that pitch. We've got about 15 minutes left, and I know some of our panelists are on a tight schedule, so I will try to scroll through as many questions as I can. Emma is a florist for weddings and events, which has been an industry shut down for the foreseeable future. She asks if there are plans to specifically target aid to industries and small businesses that won't be able to resume work until the final stages of reopening the economy.
I would suggest that we bring that to the attention of the governor as he looks at what our kind of recovery process is going to look like. Again, if you want to shoot me an email, I can contact the administration and see if there's any specific answer to that. But I think that Governor Jared Polis is doing an excellent job in leading Colorado through this crisis, and he's listening to everyone and taking input. So I'd be happy to follow up on that also.
You may be one of the 12 or 1,300 people on this call right now, for all I know. And if you are, Governor, thanks for what you're doing. Some of these questions I think may lag the conversation a little bit because we haven't been able to get to them. Courtney's a DJ. Social gatherings are canceled. Can Courtney apply for unemployment? Yes, I think is the answer to that question. Thanks to the work that Senator Williams described. John has been unemployed since August. Several opportunities have gone away due to COVID. John has existing unemployment insurance, but wanted to know if he is qualified for any extra unemployment payment assistance, and would that persist after his remaining balance is exhausted in 3 or 4 months. So somebody whose unemployment predated the pandemic but has gotten worse because of it. Is that the kind of question the Department of Labor can answer? If they are actually answering questions at the moment?
This is Senator Williams. I think that's a conversation that we need to extend to our congressional delegation. If there's going to be additional funds in the next package that comes back that will allow funds for unemployment to go a little bit beyond in the recovery process. And keep in mind that Congress is in recess now, and they're not going back until May the 4th. So this is a prime time to contact your congressional delegation and put these concerns on their radar screen while they are negotiating the next stimulus package or the relief package for our country and for our state.
Andrew, if I could also address the DJ's question about gatherings. I mean, groups like us, we're a trade association, a nonprofit trade association, and our livelihood is around convening and gathering around trade topics. So we put on 100 events a year in training and conferences, etc. Our largest conference was scheduled in person for May 1st. We usually attract about 700 businesses out for that. And we've had to convert it to an online format, rolling out programming every Friday in May. We're just extending it. World Trade Day is now World Trade Month. I hope you'll all join us online. More information on our website at wtcdenver.org. But the reason I bring that up is that you've got a lot of small chambers of commerce and trade associations and nonprofit groups that rely on events as their primary revenue stream. And so our new normal is going to be a lot of screens like this coming up with innovative ways to continue to connect with our clients and our constituents. And so I feel for the DJs out there. We're in the same type of business where we need to convene and gather. And I do think that's going to create some brand new opportunities and innovation around technology, and I'm excited about that. But it's definitely going to be hurting a number of our small service organizations. So this is the beginning of a long road to recovery for those groups. And I think the most innovative and the most nimble of groups are going to make it through, but it's by using the type of technology that we're using today.
I appreciate that point. Some other folks, and again, we've got about 10 minutes left, so I'll try to address these questions as rapidly as I can, and then defer the tougher questions to the panelists when I can't. A different John Stone is asking, what does decoupling insurance from employment look like? What does single payer healthcare look like? And again, John, so we'll have a panel, including Wendell Potter, one of the leaders of universal single payer healthcare, next Friday at noon. You can also go to my website, andrewromanoff.com, andrewromanoff.com/priorities, and take a look at our platform on healthcare and other issues. But my take, at least, is that your ability to get health coverage should not depend on your job. That's the premise. And it's been an interesting experiment in America for the last 80 years, tethering those two things. I think this pandemic is proving more than ever it's a bad idea. An anonymous attendee is asking about the undocumented immigrant community. This question came up a little bit earlier in passing. I think Karen touched on that. Anything being done to help them? The week after next, we're going to organize a panel focused particularly on the needs of the immigrant and undocumented immigrant population, because it's pretty clear that the consequences of this pandemic are not being borne equally across the population. We've talked last week a little bit about the disproportionate toll that this crisis is taking on African-American population, particularly on other communities of color. I want to just pause though and see if any of the panelists want to weigh in on what can be done or what is being done to help folks who are here without proper documentation.
Well, I mentioned, this is Karen Gerwitz at the World Trade Center. I mentioned earlier that there are some funds for immigrants and refugees that the governor mentioned. I'm going to be looking into that myself because we run a program for immigrants and refugees at the World Trade Center, helping them with their small business support. And so undocumented immigrants, refugees, I know it's going to be a difficult application process. I don't have the direct knowledge of how difficult that will be, but certainly we're helping refugees and immigrants of all status here at the World Trade Center. So, and there are other groups around town that do as well, Mi Casa and these micro lending and other types of the Lutheran Family Services. Those types of groups are helping refugees and immigrants with social issues right now. And so I would definitely start with one of those groups just to see what sort of options and applications you could qualify for. I don't have the specifics on it, but I definitely think there are avenues for you.
Susan's also asking here, another caller, if we're going to provide these resources in Spanish. And if you go to our website, you can convert the site with one touch of a button into Spanish. I think the same is likely true for the state websites that we've been issuing. We're also going to have one of these teleconferencias en español, because I speak some Spanish too. So if you stay tuned or sign up at andrewromanoff.com, you'll get invited en inglés y en español, los dos. My French is a little shot now, but I can at least promise bilingual town hall in the weeks ahead. Tamara is asking if it's true that a small business cannot apply for unemployment if they've previously applied for the PPP.
This is Senator Angela Williams. If you have previously applied and received benefits, I'll need to get the answer is if you can go back and reapply for an extended amount of time. I think we discussed that earlier, and it'll be about if Congress will appropriate additional funds for additional unemployment. So I think that is something we're going to have to address. And then if you've applied for the PPP on the SBA loans, well, we know that those monies have been depleted. We're looking at the next round of monies and what Congress can initiate. But I'll need to clarify if you're eligible for a second round of funding. So please email me.
And Senator Williams' email is now on the chat for all to see. And I'll be tweeting out her email address on my Twitter account too. So Jen is a small business owner in driver education. She's concerned about paperwork that she's given to her clients. With the DMV being closed, they can't file it. She's been told that the paperwork, or that the requirements expire during the quarantine and they would have to start over again. The DMV says this is a legislative problem.
Oh, this is Senator Angela Williams. It very well may be likely a DMV issue. I'm just going to refer you to email me, and my staff and I will get the answers and try to help you navigate through that. Andrew, I'm going to have to jump off so that I can prepare for another Zoom call.
We've given you no shortage of work for you and your team. It's a full employment act for the Williams Senate office. So thank you for your time on this.
Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. And I know to Donna and to Karen, we've only got a couple minutes left, and I realize you have other plans for your day as well. So I'll just repeat a couple questions that folks can follow along. Downtown Denver Partnership's offering a series of webinars for small businesses that are about the CARES Act, specifically the SBA portion. There'll be a town hall, I'm told, today at 1 o'clock that will talk about what happens now with the SBA out of money. So if you go, presumably, and thanks to Ken for pointing this out, to the Downtown Denver Partnership, and you're still in the mood for a town hall conversation, you don't have to stop at 1. You can start another one at that time. And Ken's also providing, and maybe Seth can post it from the Q&A to the chat box, the phone number to dial in. I'll just repeat it for the benefit of the people who are just on the phone: 833-380-0625, 833-380-0625 to join a Downtown Business Partnership Town Hall today, beginning at 1 o'clock Mountain Time. An anonymous attendee is asking, I think the question that everybody is wondering, how is it that funds for small businesses have run out and trillions were given to large corporations?
Hmm.
And this is
Do you know that answer? Andrew, do you know the answer to that?
Well, so my take is that when we're designing these recovery packages, we should aim the bulk of the benefits at small businesses and families and workers across the country, rather than just bailing out the best connected and the wealthiest corporations or their owners. I mean, it speaks to the misplaced priorities in the Senate. It happens to be one of the reasons that I'm running for this job, but I'll defer to Karen too if you want to offer a thought on that.
I would assume, it's an assumption, that these funds are tailored to small businesses. So I'd have to look into that further, but I am not aware of a disproportionate number going to the larger businesses. So
I think they're talking about the package as a whole that Congress put together. And I know there's now conversation about another wave of recovery plans. Because look, I mean, the truth is, this recession, in order to prevent it from becoming even deeper, is going to require more than what Congress has already delivered. We're looking at a third of the American population unemployed. I mean, this is, to me at least, a New Deal moment. Unfortunately, we don't have FDR in the White House, whatever the opposite of that might look like. I'm running for office, so I can say these things. I know we're about to exhaust the time, so I'll just turn to Donna, to Karen, to ask if there's anything that we didn't address in the course of this conversation that you might want to add in the 100 seconds that we've got left.
I just want to thank you for convening this. These town halls are great, and I wish you all the best in your race. And I appreciate your leadership throughout Colorado for the years I've known you. So thank you for asking me to be part of this. It's been an interesting conversation.
Thank you, Karen.
I will just concur. And I guess for people to acknowledge their anxiety and grief, and because I think that's important for us to acknowledge that we're all experiencing that across the globe, and to stay safe and keep connecting with your friends and family as much as you can through this.
Yeah. And it's going to be globalization that gets us out of this mess, because it doesn't matter where the cure is going to come, we're all going to want it. So keep trade alive.
I appreciate both of you and your willingness to join us. I appreciate everybody. I know we had a terrific turnout on this town hall. I hope you'll join us again every Friday at noon, every Tuesday at 5. We're going to continue these virtual town halls for the foreseeable future. It's my commitment to you. You can log on at andrewromanoff.com, sign up by joining our team to get email invitations to these events. You can also go to Twitter and Facebook at Romanoff 2020. I think we're posting some of this information on, at least in a visual form, on Instagram, Romanoff 2020 as well. And as always, you can participate through Zoom, but in order to get those links, you need to go to the Twitter or Facebook or website in order to get connected. I really appreciate everybody who has joined us today. I especially want to say thanks to Donna and to Karen. I know there are other ways to spend your time, even during this strangest of times in America. But I hope the resources that we're trying to offer through these events are useful to folks, and I certainly appreciate your willingness to share them with us. Thank you all.
Thanks,
Stay well.
Thanks, Karen. Nice to meet you.
Bye. Bye, Donna.